Hello, and welcome to another Lord of the Rings Rise to War video. I am the player who plays as the King Under the Mountain, and today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I haven't done one of these for a while. It's mainly because I'm now sat in Bag End, but I am going to talk about Sauron, and this is obviously post-update the other day, where he no longer has the pre-battle madness skill, where he used to be able to steal Gandalf the White's things and some other great stuff that used to be able to steal pre-battle. So he used to be able to steal things like White Rider or White Council, for example. And even though you can't do that anymore, I've heard a lot of people talk about building him as a pure tank, which is quite an interesting thing because I still think he potentially needs some initiative, and I'm going to go into that now, hopefully, in a variety of ways. So I'm going to talk through the skills and how they interact, and I'm going to talk through how these skills then interact with other commanders that are not Sauron. So specifically to start with, I'm going to talk Sauron versus Sauron in battles. I'll go into some other commanders that it affects. So some of the more popular ones. Probably throw in some gear options at the end, and a sort of a theory of what level of initiative you probably need. And it is all guesswork because it's relative to your opponent's agility on a few different things. So it's just a kind of theory, but just to suggest some alternatives to him just being purely a tank that I don't know if people have thought of or not. So on that, I'm going to get into it. So this is my Sauron. Ignore the gear sets and things. I'm just playing around with something, and it was to kind of get to this magic number here, which I'll come on to later on. I actually got, thanks to the update the other day, where it was now 10 mithril per unique. I actually got his unique, which is pretty cool. Fairly low impact, to be honest, at low refine. So probably won't go into that yet, but we'll start with the skills, but we're actually going to go a little bit backwards because it kind of tells the story. So we're going to start with the enemy. So the enemy applies pre-battle, and this is why the first reason I think that Sauron v Sauron, a little bit of agility to make you faster than your opponent Sauron is important, because this here with this now effect modified by focus stat and this debuff of your commander's skills in attack, defense, and focus. If you go first, your debuff to them is bigger than their debuff to you because you actually debuff their focus stat by whatever this percentage is. It will be small and incremental, but I'd rather be on the right side of that change than the wrong side of that change. That is a guarantee if you've got it at level 10 because it goes across all 4 enemy commanders. Again, just in general, just a great skill, to be honest. And that kind of leads into the biggest change around Sauron, which includes the Deceiver. So the Deceiver used to work pre-battle. This was the skill that used to steal from Gandalf the White, things like White Council and White Rider. And due to you going first, this is only small really, to be honest, but the enemy, your focus will be slightly more tweaked than what your enemy's focus would be. It's very minimal on the Deceiver, to be perfectly honest. So you've just got a slight victory on your focus. And the madness potential on this of just one target. I mean, I guess you could madden your opponent Sauron, stopping them from potentially maddening you. Not much happens in round 1, so the interaction in round 1 and that skill between the two Saurons isn't necessarily game breaking. You go on to Lord of Gifts, which is probably the main reason I think it's important to actually be a faster Sauron. And I'm going to try and explain why. So you, with this skill, have a 30% chance to 2 formations, appreciate it's only 2 formations, to inflict madness on the target for 1 round. So just sort of surmising, 1, if you go first, there's a chance you might actually be able to hit your opponent Sauron. So if we just take that interaction to start with, there is a potential for you to actually madden the entire enemy formation in this round. So this will be a round 3 skill. So say they're running Sauron, Dane, Bjorn, and Gandalf the White. Going into round 3, if your Sauron hits 2, and you're lucky if it hits 2, don't get me wrong, but if it does hit 2, so say if it hits Sauron and Bjorn, for example, and you madden their Sauron, you can potentially also hit then their Dane and their Gandalf the White with their own Sauron. So again, your chances of causing crowd control, even though it's minimal, are a lot more effective if your Lord of Gift goes first. And this obviously interaction happens 3 times in the fight. It happens on 3, 6, and 9. And it's really important in some ways because you'll get a little bit of a chance to get through something like a Durins Blood in round 3. I mean, you'd get that naturally anyway because of even without the agility, because you'll be faster than the dwarves. But quite interesting to be able to see that interaction between the two Saurons. The other part of that interaction, and we'll kind of go into it a little bit more when I start going through particular commanders, but say if your opponent is running a Bjorn, for example, and there will be a sweet spot on where you want to be. So at the end of you, really and truthfully, to be perfect, you would like to madden Bjorn at the end of round 3. So when he introduces the skill Shapeshifter, Skin Changer, which is this skill here, it potentially hits their own formation as he's maddened. So the way to do that would be, obviously, the initiative of Bjorn is 39 at base, and not too many people running with anything other than 39 at base, to be honest. So if their Bjorn is faster than your Sauron, hence this figure 38, your Sauron can potentially madden the Bjorn after he's gone in round 3, and then the interaction starts on round 4 where Bjorn is still maddened. So that's quite an interesting interaction, but if you are faster than your opponent's Sauron, but also slower than their Bjorn, you get 2 chances of this if you madden their Sauron, which is a pretty cool interaction, I think, as far as it goes. And I'm not sure if it's a bug or not, but if you're also faster than their Gandalf, and they're also faster than their Gandalf, for example, but you have got a chance to madden Gandalf and actually steal White Rider, which I think is a bit of a bug, which I think they'll fix. But in theory, going into round 4... Sorry, if you're slower than their Gandalf, in round 4, you can potentially steal their White Rider by doing the same interaction at the end of round 3. So if your Sauron is slower than their Gandalf the White, going into round 4, Gandalf the White's White Rider skill may end up hitting his own formation if he's one of the people that he maddens with Lord of Gifts. So I thought that was quite a cool way and sort of a base introduction to saying why my Sauron should be faster than your Sauron. Hopefully that made some sense. And then I'm just going to go through some interactions with some other comms. So we'll start with Gandalf the White. And it's quite an important interaction, to be honest. So if you are faster than Gandalf, his base is 37, and likely now not to improve so much, I don't think. I don't think people will necessarily run agility on him. I think it'll be more protection sets and focus sets to get White Council up as much as possible, or even some unit defense potentially, just to make him more of a tank. But you can, due to the way the interaction works with the enemy skill, where you apply the debuff pre-battle to things like focus, you can massively affect their White Council. They can do the same to you if they're obviously the same if they've got the Sauron, but you can really, really chunk down White Council by a good percentage because of the way that it scales. So that's quite an interesting interaction with Gandalf the White. Like I say, you can potentially steal his White Rider off him in round 4, because if you madden him at the end of round 3 by being slower than him, you can steal it, but then you wouldn't be able to steal... you wouldn't potentially be able to steal then his White Council at the start, or not steal, sorry, but sort of lower his White Council at the start. Makes it a little bit more technical. And I suppose from this point of view, Thrain's Guard is probably a skill that works a little bit better than White Council in this way, because with it now scaling off command, Sauron's skill doesn't actually affect command in any way, shape or form. I'll just show it just for the sake of it. So he cannot sort of do anything really to Falgon's, which I think is pretty cool for Falgon, to be honest, and Falgon uses. It's a good thing to have. And then just to move on then to the interaction with Bjorn. So Bjorn, again, skin changer round 4. if your Sauron is, I'm just going through the main points here. There will be some other rounds whereby it can also do some different things. So if you are slower than Bjorn, so Bjorn acts first at the end of round 3 when you madden him, because you're only at this sort of level here. You can see where this is going, by the way. So if you're slower, you potentially madden him going into round 4 if Lord of Gifts hits Bjorn, and then you can steal Shapeshifter, which has got all sorts of carnage. Because if you can steal Shapeshifter, sorry, Skin Changer, and he's not calling it Shapeshifter, it's because he shapeshifts. So if you can steal Skin Changer, you can potentially have this chance of maddening everyone here, which is, again, just catastrophic for your enemies. Pretty cool skill, to be honest. So again, that kind of sweet spot that I'm talking about is probably around about there. The dwarves, the interaction with the dwarves is actually really interesting. So I'll try and cover Dane and Gimli at the same time, but I'll just look at Dane's because their skills line up at the same time. So Dane and Gimli now both have these 3 damage skills, and you'll see a lot more Gimlis now because of the update, to be honest, and the fact that now tier 2s are a lot easier to use. So we'll just take Dane as an example. Their initiative base is 19 and 17 respectively. So due to the interaction with Lord of Gifts, which is pretty much guaranteed, to be honest, whether your Sauron is fast or slow, you can potentially every single time steal this Durins Blood. And then on round 6, you've actually got the chance of stealing all 3 by maddening your own enemy, which is pretty impressive. And it's probably one of the reasons why I wouldn't run Dane and Gimli in the same formation, because you can do the same thing with Gimli and it just sort of maximizes that chance of stealing these skills with madness. What I will say is, again, if you're going Sauron versus Sauron, if you're hitting their Sauron first, you could potentially madden their Sauron, and say if you hit with madness Dane and Sauron, their Sauron could actually hit Gimli and Gandalf the White, say. So even though it's a really, really small percentage, I'd rather be in front of that curve by being faster than their Sauron and giving me more opportunities to potentially score madness. And bear in mind that these skills line up twice in the fight, in rounds 3 and round 6. That's a lot of opportunities to steal all the skills of the dwarves if they're both in the same formation, which I think is a bit of a danger as far as it goes. I just kind of wanted to highlight that because I think that's quite a cool interaction. And again, Sauron, for me, is still the meta commander above someone like a Gil-galad, for example. Looking into something like a Shadow, there's a lot you can steal from Shadow. Will it necessarily be game breaking for you? Not necessarily. Shadow's base initiative is 35. So with the interactions of the madness that you've got from the couple of skills from Sauron, you can potentially steal Undertaker twice, Black Numenorian twice, normal attacks twice, in rounds 1 and 3. But if we talk about round 3 specifically, you've got the same interaction from that you've just had with Bjorn and Gimli. So your Lord of Gifts, if you're faster again, gives you the chance of maddening their Sauron, who also, if you haven't hit their Shadow, if they're using a Shadow, could potentially do that to their Shadow. So I just kind of wanted to highlight that. Obviously, it's a great White Council burn for you if their own Shadow's hitting their own army in rounds 3 and 1. That's why I just think Sauron's such a dangerous commander. And then kind of going into the new meta, really, I guess, the one commander from PBE really, really shone and kind of did a little bit more than what everyone anticipated. Got a pretty cool new skill in the head of the White Council, great for stripping, ironically, White Council. And he's now turned into one of the main damage dealers, which is really cool. I will be trying to get mine to R10 as soon as possible. I've been using the vouchers and actually refunding my other vouchers to start building him up to R10. It'll probably take me 3 or 4 weeks, but I will be doing that, which I thought was pretty cool. And I will get his unique as well, because I think he's got one of the uniques that is very usable. And again, strips White Council, but if you can refine this, it's pretty cool. So if we just talk about his interaction, again, because of Lord of Gifts, you're talking about being able to steal of many colours, potentially in round 3. This is pretty much a guarantee because his initiative is only 17. And And I can't imagine too many people running around with Saruman being fast, because if someone is, say, using a gill, you're going to want to be slower than the gill to make sure that you're not getting 3 rounds of evasion, you're only getting 2 to deal with. So you can pretty much steal that. Round 6, again, would be a horrible round because you're potentially able to steal the 2 skills. And then also, due to his madness skills, I mean, we're going to specifically talk about that round 3 interaction again. Round 3, you've got either their Sauron if you're faster and your own Sauron guaranteed, depending on how the madness works, to be able to potentially steal this skill, which again is great to strip the enemy White Council. You can also do this in round 1 due to the Deceiver skill as well, but it's a lot lower chance. So I just kind of wanted to talk through that interaction as well, and how Sauron again can kind of do a lot of damage to people. Yes, this is a coin flip and low chance scenario, but again, like I said, I'd rather be on the right side of low chances just because of the way it works. So going back to the theory, you're guaranteed pretty much, because Sauron's base, if I can press the right commander, Sauron's base is 29 initiative. So from a gear perspective and everything else, and a kind of magic number, but it's not a guaranteed number. Obviously, everything you do is subject to your opponent's gear, or whether he has an agility set, or whether he's using something that has initiative on the actual gear piece. It then runs into different troops, but I'm just putting down a theory without troops, as in purely just a theory of purely just this is what I would probably try and aim for at the moment, I guess, which I'm not going to say hard and fast rules, but I'm just, for this theory, it works. So you will be Gandalf the White's 37. Most people are going to run focus on Gandalf the White. I don't think you'll see a lot of initiative on him unless this becomes a thing with Sauron, and then you might see a little bit of initiative on him just to try and stop him from debuffing White Council and things like that. Bjorn is 39 as base. Now, you never see anyone really running agility on Bjorn. I run this agility set on him mainly, to be honest, because I don't have anything else that matches up from an accessory point of view, but also because my Bjorn acting first has potential to madden their Bjorn and hit their own formation. It doesn't happen very often, but that's the only reason why I do it. I just want to go before their Bjorn when it comes to his skin changer skill. So that's kind of why I do that. So in theory, you still want to be slightly slower than Bjorn, and all the dwarves are sort of 17, 18 and 20 and things like that. So they're kind of the two. Hence, from a gear point of view, I'm kind of looking at this sweet spot of 38. And there's a few options to put into 38, to be honest. And I'm going to go through from what I personally have, and kind of a mix if you're looking for some okay focus and some command and a little bit of damage, because, you know, R10 now, because of the change to skill points, you can do a little bit of damage now as well if you want to. So I'm kind of doing, this is sort of a command and a little bit of focus build, I guess, but it'll be some troop defense as well, so we can tank a little bit. It's a little bit hybrid and probably a little bit messy, but it gets you to this sort of 38 number. And there'll be quite a lot of unit defense in there off these 3 pieces once they were maxed out. So you will still tank, and you'll have a decent command stat as well. So that would be kind of one choice. Then if we just go into the chest, I'll kind of go through some other options that also give you that kind of 38 theory. So if we go into the Heroes Gather chest, I don't actually know where the other chest has gone at this point, but if we go into Heroes Gather, I would probably be looking at something like a Reckoning, because you get decent unit defense and command, so you'll still be able to tank. A tracker plate is an interesting choice, I think, in this, because you get +3 initiative, so then you're not using the obsidian dagger, so you're not looking for damage, you can get the command that you're after. So something like a tracker's plate would be pretty good, because you're still getting that +3 initiative that you need to get to that magical 38 number. Then you can look at either the High Elf Helm, which again gives you this +6 initiative, or you can stick with the Core, which again both of them give you pretty good command, bit of unit defense, A little bit of focus on this one, so I would probably stick with that over the high elf, to be honest. But I'm just trying to give a couple of options, really. Then, lastly, I would probably look at something like the harp. And the harp, it gives you a lot of unit defense and a lot of command. If I was going to tweak that slightly, and look for the same sort of level of initiative, you could maybe run the Cask of Submerged Isles, again tank, and then as a accessory you could run the Merius Reigns, which will give you the same amount of initiative and get you back to that sort of 38 level in between. Obviously this isn't taking into account troops, so kind of maxing what we've got here, and it is only a theory. I'm not saying go out and do it, I'm just putting across a way that it might work. Your other thing to do is you could go full tank and go half set agility, for example, as a set bonus, and you could go something like a Reckoning, Elf Hauberk, Cask of Submerged Isle, and a Harp. This would take you to 39 without troops, because you obviously get +5 on your troops and on your commander for the initiative, which will add up. So you're kind of running that risk then, but you'll still be around the Gandalf. The other thing you could do, if you wanted to do a mix, you could maybe do something like a Noldor sword, so you're getting some more focus and some command, Tracker's Plate, something like a Call of the Forest, so again you're getting the mix of focus. And lastly, a harp, which will give you that command and defense. And then this is again just to sort of hypothesize. So say if someone's using a Gil formation, which, you know, at the moment everyone's talking about Gil-galad being back in the meta and people have been using it, and from the PBE people have been talking about running medium units. And if you're going to do that, you're likely to be using Bonites on both Gandalf the White and, say, a Bjorn. And if that's the case, with troops, you would be looking to aim at something like a range of 52 to 54, to still be able to steal everything as kind of much as what I've said in this video, if that makes sense. So hopefully I've explained that pretty well. I do still think, if I'm being honest, that the meta hasn't necessarily changed at all. I know people have said Gil has got better, I get that, but I still think this guy's kit is so impressive that if you're playing NRP, for me, he's still a better commander. And I know I don't like elves, so I'm always going to say that, but I do think that. And to be honest, from some reports I've seen, I still think Bjorn is perhaps better than a Gimli, even if people are using a Gil. So you're not losing so much in round 4. But with that, that's kind of everything I wanted to go through today. I hope I've given some alternative theories to how Sauron versus Sauron might go, or how to use a Sauron in a formation. There are no hard and fast rules, because you are literally playing the game of your opponent's gear, or your opponent's troop type, to be perfectly honest. But it was just to sort of put across, to get people talking about it more than anything, that there are so many different interactions with Sauron skills and the main damage dealers. I mean, that skill with the dwarves in round 6, well, 3, 6 and 9, well, 3 and 6 in particular, to be honest, not just Durins Blood, but 3 and 6, where all the skills line up and you've got the potential with Sauron to take all of those skills. It's a low chance, but it's a serious kind of piece of kit to have in your armory, which I think is slightly better than the evasion for 2 to 3 rounds, if I'm being honest. But with that, as always, when you're making these decisions, make your own decisions, be happy with the decisions you've made, and always follow your nose.